I had a really crazy thought. Now, though you guys are seeing this at a very different time than what it's actually being uploaded, I actually am recording this maybe a minute after the last Kingdom Hearts video that you guys actually saw. The one primarily about the Master of Masters and what his true goals for Lucio end up being. I was looking through my Google Docs and I realized that sounds like a banger. Let me kind of talk about this. So there's something I want to talk about, and I have in a way made this video, but it was actually years before Kingdom Hearts 3 came out, so it was probably around the time the first few Kingdom Hearts 3 trailers came out. So it was years ago. Kingdom Hearts 3 has been out for years now, and that's a scary thing to say. But at the end of the day, I feel this is something I should talk about, especially with how Dark Road is kind of making this seem like it's possible. Now, we know, thanks to the epilogue of Kingdom Hearts 3, we know that Xigbar, the character we've called Xigbar this entire time, has actually been the character Lucio, who was one of the original wielders of the Keyblade and was actually a foreteller. The foreteller who was never actually shown, but was always wearing the actual cloak, just like the Master of Masters, and we know he was given a role to protect the box, which we of course still don't know what's actually inside it, and was to receive the Master of Masters Keyblade and to pass it down to his student and him to his, and so on and so forth. Of course, needing to pass his heart along to different bodies, and that way he can end up living all of these years to actually continue observing the events of the future. One thing in particular though that has still stuck with me after all this time, because they've showed it but they've never talked about it, and I know it has to be important because they've emphasized it by zooming in on Xehanort looking at it. It exists, and this is important. I know it. I can feel it in my bones. I'm living not rent-free in Nomura's brain. I promise you, I'm spitting here. I promise you. So the main thing I do want to talk about is Master Odin's true identity. Those of you guys who don't know who Master Odin is might be behind on Kingdom Hearts Dark Road. Kingdom Hearts Dark Road is basically a game where we go over the events of young Xehanort's past and how he ended up becoming the man he is that we've seen now in the mainline games. So one thing in particular, Master Odin is actually the master of Ericus and Xehanort and all his other little students. And in particular here, I do want to emphasize this. And we first saw this in a trailer for Kingdom Hearts 3, because that is how I made the video of it originally. And I said that what if the Master of Masters, or Lucio, primarily Lucio for that specific video, what if young Xehanort and Ericus's master is actually Lucio? Because we already got off the cusp of finding out about this, the movie that came out about back cover, and that's basically all we knew. That was pretty much our latest information about these characters. And it hit me. The only reason I believe this to be the case, because when we actually see them playing the chess game, Ericus and young Xehanort, when we see them playing this game, when he says the future, it's already been written, specifically in the trailer, because I know that's not the voice sample they use when he actually gazes at it, but in the trailer, he gazes at the no-name Keyblade sitting up on the classroom wall. This is not a coincidence, because the only person to really have that Keyblade are people who are directly tied to Lucio and the Master of Masters. Primarily because we know the phrase that is tied to this Keyblade, a will to be passed on, generally, which we've assumed because it's never specifically been said in the series. Because of this phrase, we believe anyone to wield this Keyblade must share the same will as its original user, which that being the Master of Masters, which is why he specifically wanted Lucio to pass this Keyblade onto his student, then onto him to his. And if you get someone who's young, ambitious, and doesn't really know a lot about things, you can manipulate them into thinking in the same way that you do. And that is how many of things in humanity has really become the way they have. And I don't think it's any different here. If this were to be the case, throughout the lives that Lucio has lived, he has made sure he had a student, made sure they inhabit the Keyblade, and he ends up taking over their body and becoming that person. This would make a lot of sense if this were to be the case. So when he were to become that person, he would be able to continue on, have a basically whole new lifespan, and be able to continue teaching that same message from what the Master of Masters taught him onto new people. Though I do know in the end, it technically doesn't have to be that he became that person. He didn't technically have to become that person, but even if he just were to say pass his Keyblade onto that person and just keep a watchful eye, say he was an important figure in Scalad Kylum back then, say he was someone around those lines, he would still be able to keep his eye on the Keyblade without becoming them. Regardless, I think the theory still works, primarily just because at that point, if you brainwash somebody into thinking like you, they practically just become another them. I think that's pretty much how brainwashing works in a way. So I'm just going to go along with the theory that he actually becomes that person until it becomes Xehanort. Xehanort was the one he really believed to be the one the Master of Masters was kind of talking about. So of course, since the Master of Masters has already met him by that point, but I'm not too sure Luxu actually knows about that. Because at the end of the day, because we know the Master has been in the future, has he contacted Luxu since then? He knows Luxu is still around because he can see the future, but has they been in contact? I'm getting off topic. What I'm trying to say here is because whoever's classroom this is, which we know it to be Master Odin because of Dark Road states that this is his classroom and that's their teacher, it's likely to believe that Master Odin actually has a lot to do with the Master of Masters and Luxu, whether he is Luxu himself possessed or he was trained by Luxu into this same philosophy. And we also know in the future that Ericus actually ends up becoming the person to inherit the Land of Departure from their master, because obviously they were trained by the same people. Xehanort wasn't the one that was picked. And in that original theory, I did talk about, well, yeah, he may have inherited the Land of Departure, but in the end, I think the true successor was actually Xehanort, primarily because he was the one who was to inherit the knowledge of what he was originally taught, the true secrets of what it means to be a wielder of the Keyblade, the truth about the light and the darkness, that curiosity that would end up getting young Xehanort that last little push he needs to end up going down his dark path. That would allow him to inherit the Keyblade. Now, young Xehanort that we had met in Dream Drop Distance specifically said that he doesn't have that Keyblade yet. He hasn't been through that yet, which makes sense. Obviously, he didn't have that Keyblade in Dream Drop Distance, so we know he hasn't experienced that yet. Though we know soon he likely will, because the events of Dark Road was likely going on during this time, or even had already passed. Though I'm assuming at the end of Dark Road, that is when we'll actually see this end up coming to pass. Because as far as we know, even after the time skip in Dark Road, Master Odin still exists. So if that ends up being the case, then I'm almost sure that this is going to be the case. But if not, I'd love to see that too. I'm expecting Dark Road to end during 2021. I don't expect Dark Road to be a very long story, and I'm hoping Union Cross also ends too, especially on a high note. That's something I would really like. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. For me, this is a very strange video to record because in a way I'm kind of re-saying stuff I've already said like 6 years ago. So 5 6 years ago or something. So it's like, in a way, I feel like, dang, I kind of hate this and messing up and stuff like that. You guys don't see that because obviously it's edited, but in a way, I just wanted to bring this up because I feel like it's more relevant than ever. I could just share out the old video, but I don't want to subject you guys to, 5 year ago version of me. It's not a pretty sight. So let me know what you guys think. Do you think Master Odin is in connection with the Master of Masters and Luxu? Do you think he's Luxu himself? Or again, like I said, just having that connection to one another? Let me know down in the comments below. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. We're really on our way to 10K. And I would really appreciate any kind of support you guys can make us have. I would really appreciate that. Thank you guys so much for watching. My name is KingdomAce, and remember, my warriors of courage, to stay strong, stay beautiful, and always look skyward.